We're live. Do we have any technical issues?
We might have a technical issue because the sound volume isn't going up.
Isn't it?
No.
Um,
And the lights are on. Can anybody hear us? Can you
Jeff,
hear us?
can you hear us speaking?
I bet it's no. Hang on. Try that. Does that help? Now you can hear us.
Can you?
I reckon, because now I can see the... I love this. Going live is such fun.
So, what are we going to do?
I don't know.
Maybe this will be the shortest show in the world. Maybe.
Yeah, I reckon it might be. We got 2 people watching, apparently. If you can hear us, please give us a thumbs up.
Trish, can you hear us?
Maybe they can't.
Oh, they can.
They can.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Well, that was what the
Thank God.
That was what the whole show was about. There you
Hello.
go. Thanks for coming. It was great seeing you. Okay, great. We're loud and clear. All right.
Okay.
Well, that was an interesting start to the,
it was, and
live.
I've got a feeling the mic isn't working, so we're relying on the sound on the laptop, which is going to be a bit dodgy. So
okay.
We're going to have to. When you says, I know it's loud and clear. So, all right, we'll just keep going, I guess.
But you just have to love technology, really.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So I'm going to put the mouse there.
No, don't put it there. It's full on.
You'll notice I've got my glass eyeballs on. So today.
Hi.
G'day.
Let's start again.
We're going to start again. So today we want to talk about something that actually has plagued humanity since the beginning of contact and contact with spirits. It's the fact that when you see something, possibly the next day, like say you see a spirit one day, and then the next day you go, did I actually see that spirit? Or you see a craft in the sky, and then maybe even if you were with somebody, the next day you're sort of second guessing yourself, did we really see that? Maybe it was a satellite. And there's always this second guessing that's taking place. And basically that's what's called plausible deniability. It's been going on for a very, very long time. It's going on still. And even though there has been some level of disclosure, I believe yesterday, and the videos are out and some of the images and the footage, people are still going to be questioning what's going on, because this is actually part of the fabric of reality. And this plausible deniability is going to be a big issue. And we're going to talk about it today because it's in the Zeta interviews. The Zetas talked about this a long time ago. Now, I'm going to, unfortunately, I have to read from my notes because if you can see on my glasses, I've got my laptop in front of me.
Can I just draw attention to what they said first?
Yeah, go for it.
So this is a really battered old copy from 2016. This is edition 14 of the primer of the Zeta race. Okay. Right. There were lots of editions. If you've got the more recent one, it'll have a slightly different cover. Yeah. But I mean, back in 2016, chapter 27 in this book, they were talking about the Zetas were talking about plausible deniability. We can't actually find an earlier edition book, so we can't work out exactly how far it goes back. We'd have to trawl through the Zeta interviews, but maybe it's earlier than that, we're not sure. But in the community posts, which is a relatively new thing on Facebook, I think, it's for me anyway, I put the transcript of that conversation into the post, so you can read what the Zeta said about plausible deniability. You can read the words that they spoke for themselves in that post. Okay.
Right.
So there you go.
Okay.
That's it. That's my contribution. I'm going now.
So basically, it was confirmed in 2016 that there was a process that was put in place between humans and races, by the way, and it was based around what was called plausible deniability. So basically, this is a super complicated process, and we're going to have to weave in and out of certain narratives to actually understand what this is all about. Because without understanding this, you're probably never going to understand any level of disclosure um, unless one of the scenarios that I reads out happens. And then if that happens, well, there's going to be still a little bit of plausible deniability, but we'll see how we go. So basically, we all know that social media is being driven to extreme levels discussing disclosure. And to be interesting, some officials are saying that uh, this country would become unglued. Other people are saying people would stay up at night worrying or thinking about this stuff. These are direct quotes, by the way. Others have said the material is so significant, it is shocking and paradigm shifting. That there are aliens under the house, okay, and hybrid bodies are used by malevolent entities to take humans on craft. If you want to add in all the things that you've probably seen on social media, you realize that what we're looking at is the most chaotic picture that could have been created. And think about what the Zetas have said many years ago.
That's all right. There was a little, there was a thing that came up on the screen saying that our thing had stopped and now it's gone.
What had stopped?
The live had stopped.
Oh.
But I think it's going again now. We're having some funny problems this morning with this.
Yeah, I'm sure that there's certain things that don't want us to talk about this, but that's all right. We'll just keep going forward. All right. Paul, any more medium sessions with the Zetas planned?
Yeah, they happen regularly at this house.
Well, yeah. Yeah, that's so funny. Maybe. We'll see.
I think he means public.
So basically, we're just going to step back from everything. Now, the control system is collaborative. It's a flexible mechanism used by non-human intelligences to regulate humanity's exposure to the paranormal and extraterrestrial phenomenon. It was first hypothesized by a researcher called Jacques Vallée in 1975 and was later confirmed by the extraterrestrials. Now, William Trinneet, when he was writing the primer with me, he did a lot of research on this. And when he came to Australia, he wanted to see if he could test certain things. But what became obvious to him was even if you had a physical result of something, you still didn't know what caused it. And so once again, there's plausible deniability kicking in because you've got your result, but you still question it. So the core concept, instead of revealing themselves with undeniable, overwhelming proof, the Zetas and their collaborators deliberately maintain a managed level of uncertainty around UFO sightings. And we're going to include physical mediumship phenomenon, such as levitation, materialization, apports and ectoplasm, and other anomalous events. Now, why did we include that? Because when William was over in Australia, we went and sat in some seances, right? Mm-hmm. And in those seances, certain things happened. And one of them was that there was an apport that was given to William from a medium. And I was sitting there watching this apport develop. I was only about a metre away from the person. And then we started to have a discussion about this apport. Where did it come from? Was it stored in the mental realm and then, made physical again through ectoplasm? How did this happen? And we thought, here we go once again with the whole plausible deniability. Spirit people are doing it as well. And so this isn't just about extraterrestrials, this is about spirit people and humans. Everybody's in on it, whether they want to be or not. That's the problem, right?
Yeah. So I'm still sat here worrying about sound.
Are you?
Yeah. I just want to put it in a different port to see if the mic picks up, because people are saying there's a bad echo.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Hang on, people. We are having technical fun and games. Right.
The light came on.
Can we try this? Hopefully that's better.
Has the echo gone? Okay.
Let's just keep going.
We'll just keep going.
We've got the light now. So.
Oh, Christopher can hear us fine.
Move on, Christopher.
Move on. You sound good. Oh, well,
Good.
good that we sound good. All right. This uncertainty creates plausible deniability. People can still rationally dismiss the events as a hoax, misidentification, hallucination, or some secret human technology if they choose to. So basically what the plausible deniability is giving you is choice. Now that's very important because was it President Trump that said people can choose to make of the phenomenon that they see as they have free will or something.
Yeah, I'm going to paraphrase him. He says people can make a choice as to whether they believe it or not. So once again, it's the Zeta speak about plausible deniability and the fact that it preserves free will, and people have a choice they can make. They can either choose to believe it or they can choose not to believe it.
Yeah.
So, paraphrasing him, people still have the choice as to whether they believe or not. We're still very much within the realms of plausible deniability.
So the whole point of this deniability is that people can still rationally dismiss the events as hoaxes, as hallucinations in technology, and at the same time, the repeated absurd nature of the event plants seeds of doubt about the current understanding of reality, encouraging gradual acceptance at an individual and collective level. So basically, we need to know who's actually participating in the control system, because the plausible deniability is a control system.
This is where it gets interesting.
This is more interesting. The Zetas are part of the control system, and other cooperating extraterrestrial and interdimensional races as well. This is all about disclosure. And when is the time for disclosure? By the races, not by humans.
Yeah, but we're talking about extraterrestrial disclosure here, to clarify.
Yeah, just to clarify. Also, spirit realm beings are also part of this plausible deniability, right?
Yep.
They'll show themselves as an orb floating through the room, but they're not an orb. Yep. They present themselves in a different form or a different age or a different male or female or whatever, and they may not even be that. So from their perspective, they're also doing it. It's as though somehow we're not supposed to know what's really going on. Definitively know what's going on. Also, there's certain people that also know about plausible deniability. So it's not a rigid top-down sort of dictatorship. The Zetas describe it as malleable and flowing, more like a gentle guiding process rather than a strict control. They explicitly said they do not see it as a formal control system, but as a helpful method that serves a purpose. And so the primary aim of the control system is this. So why is it in place? Why are you allowed to see something and then make a decision about whether it's real or not real? Okay? Sudden, irrefutable proof of extraterrestrials and energetic, non-physical realms would likely trigger widespread panic, especially in a humanity the Zetas described as a simple race. Well, compared to a lot of the other races, yes, we are simple. And fear would push people towards self-preservation and rejection rather than understanding. So the control system keeps fear low by never allowing a person to have complete certainty about any specific thing that takes place. It also protects your free will. So by preserving plausible deniability, every person retains a genuine choice to believe or disbelieve. You are not forced into a new worldview, and this respects human autonomy and prevents an automated jump in consciousness that may go wrong in either direction, fear or dogma. All right? So that once again, it's protecting your will, your free will. And the Zetas are very, very much in support of humanity's free will. Okay, and we've seen that over and over again. Also, it enables gradual maturity of consciousness. Repeated exposure to unexplained phenomenon encourages all people to question reality and to contemplate new possibilities and slowly raise their individual and collective consciousness. The Zetas emphasize in the book, it is healthy to question, as slowly coming to maturity and understanding is important. All right. So secondary long-term aim is, what this is doing is preparing humanity for open communication and integration with the energetic realms. The Zeta's deeper goal is not just disclosure, but for humanity to, one, recognize the existence of the energetic non-physical realms, understand that love is the fundamental creative force in the universe, and raise the collective state of consciousness, which is identical to the state of love. Now, let me just use my mouse. And only when these vibrational thresholds have been reached can genuine telepathic communication occur between humans and other races. The control system is simply the preparation phase for that relationship. Okay. So basically, you've got free will. You can make a decision about what you will and won't believe. In doing so, it allows your consciousness to grow and build. And as you step out forward into the ether or into realms of frequency, you learn more and more and more about yourself. And then ultimately, you move into a relationship with spirit people, or you pass over, or you have extraterrestrial contact, or there is disclosure. And we know that we've got some level of disclosure at the moment. So how does plausible deniability work in practice? We'll give you some examples. A UFO will appear and disappear with impossible maneuvers, and debunkers will then provide a conventional explanation for it. And that's exactly what's happening with all the images that are being put out on the websites. People are going, no, that's a flare, that's this, there's a parachute, whatever. So that's the first thing.
Some interesting maneuvers that flare has been recorded doing.
That's right.
Not.
Yeah,
That's a flare.
What's that comment there? Even though we all have a choice to make on our behalf, both alternate life forms, how does the government release of documents yesterday provide proof of effective things? It doesn't. There is,
nothing.
That information is underwhelming, and it's being drip fed, which is great. I think it needs to be, because if they were coming out with that narrative that if you knew what the truth, you wouldn't be able to sleep at night. You don't want that. That's just a fear-based narrative. And what you want is a really positive environment. People are like, wow, we're not alone in the universe. And I feel, that would be such a healthy environment to be in.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so with physical mediumship, with in a seance room or with a medium, what it does is when it produces phenomenon under the conditions where it's in darkness, okay, but also people will then come out of it and go, did that really happen? You see?
I've certainly witnessed stuff that makes me go, did that really happen? Because it's been so utterly mind-blowing what I've seen.
You mean like the head on the plaque that just grew?
But yeah, that's one thing.
And then he spoke to you. The floating head spoke to Syann.
Yeah, that's one thing. I saw an apport just form out of nothing.
Yeah.
On a little glowing plaque in the middle of floating about a metre above the ground. You just sat there going, wow.
Well, I've seen.
And you do come out of these things going, how my mind, my logical mind wants to reject what I've just seen, because it can't give it any logical explanation, which only leaves the fact that we have paranormal stuff that we don't know about. But when you're up close and personal to it on a regular basis, you get to know it. And then when you start speaking to the spirit people, they give you some level of explanation that you can kind of grasp. You're like, right, okay, there's just a whole other word out there that we don't partake in on a daily basis.
When I went to see David Thompson, he's a physical medium in Australia, I think he's still here. Everybody went and sat in the room, and then we closed the door, and I was on the outside of the door, and we taped the whole door up, right? But he was tied into his chair with zip ties and all the rest of it, and he had a gag around his mouth and all the rest of it. So he had a lot of security, so that he was seen to be doing the right thing, which is great. Anyway, at the end of it, I heard a knocking on the door. Someone said, "Could you take the tape off?" I took it off, and there's David in his chair on this side of the room. So he's moved at least, or floated at least 6 meters across the room in his chair. Now, at that point in time, I'm trying to work out whether he's got little ball bearings under the seat or little wheels or something, because, it's just too hard to imagine.
Or what about Colin Fry?
Well, wait for a second.
Go on.
And then in another seance that I was in with Tom Morrison, basically, Tom, it was tied in the chair. I was in front of him by about maybe only a meter, and he floated up into the air in this very heavy chair, about, I don't know, that high off the ground, and floated towards me. And then the spirit people dropped the chair beside me, and it grazed my side. Now, I had no way to deny that was not spirit that did that, because I actually had seen this up close and personal. That was probably the only one of the times I thought to myself, oh boy, this is seriously real.
Yeah.
This is real.
Colin Fry, they put him, they dematerial, well, they matter through matter, they put him through the wall.
They put him through a wall?
Yeah, they put him through the wall. They turned all the lights on, he wasn't in the room. He'd been strapped in the chair, door locked, all normal seance protocol followed. They turned the lights on, he wasn't there. They found him in the room next door.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that happened to a few mediums, didn't it?
Yeah.
In the past.
Yeah. And John's saying you're not sure you could handle the floating head. It took me weeks to recover from that experience, just to kind of get my head, which was attached to my body, to get my head around.
You saw the head develop though.
I didn't see the head develop, because it developed on the other side of the room. The people were, I'm going to talk about it now. So the people were sat in a horseshoe shape like this, and the medium was in the middle at the top. And it was very low red light, so it wasn't even pitch black, which was great. So it means if there's somebody walking around, you could see it. You would be able to see it, even though it's very low red light. But basically, they illuminated a little square piece of, I don't know, something, cardboard or whatever. They put, luminous paint. They shine a torch on it. It glows in the dark, right? This thing lifted up off the ground and was at head height. So everybody sat down on chairs, and it approached the first person. So it was originally right outside the cabinet, and then it moved over to the first person. And basically, if I was sat here in the U, and I could see it up here, right there, and I could see like a glowing oval over the top of it, translucent but glowing, kind of head-shaped oval. I didn't know what it was at first, and I could hear there were interactions taking place. I think there was only about 20 people in the room, wasn't that many. And then as the plaque, you could see it, the glowing square, you could see that really clearly. And then as it came nearer, I realized this thing was taking on, I could see it in more detail. And I was starting to see ear and hair. And I realized it was literally a head. And it was like, if this is the plaque, it was, I don't know, about that far off the top of it. And the luminosity of the material was uplighting this shape above it. And as this plaque came round, it stopped this far in front of me. So which really isn't very far at all. And said in an Irish accent, male, hello, nice to meet you. And I was just like so speechless. All I could just say was, hi. and just like, I couldn't, it was just absolutely bonkers. And it just then carried on. Who was the
medium?
That was Bill Meadows, who is no longer on this side of life. And I'm sure he is continuing on from spirit realm. but this floating head, Father Jack, it was one of his regular communicators, who we'd spoken to many times. I'd sat in seance with Bill Meadows, I think 5 times. But it's the only time I ever saw the materialization of his head. Spoke to every single person present in the room.
Yeah.
And it was just insane.
But there's been
amazing.
There's
Absolutely
been seances
amazing.
where a full spirit person will materialize.
Yeah.
And as the energy reduces in the room, the spirit starts to disintegrate from the feet up, and they just slowly go down as they're talking.
Yeah.
And all that's left is the head sitting on the floor talking.
It's just the stuff you hear about.
It's just, and I've not experienced that, but I know sort of spoken to people who have.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of really weird stuff, and you have as well. And it comes back to like plausible deniability. So I'll give you an example. This is how it works. This control system. We organise for the craft to land in New South Wales, and it does. And the Zetas come out and they walk around everybody. A couple of years later, I start to think that never happened.
Yeah, you do question.
And I was just talking to somebody, and I said, "Yeah, I don't know if that really happened." And they said that they were there with me, and I went, "I didn't realise that you were there. I'd forgotten."
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, "It did happen." And so that's that whole, sort of deniability, just coming back in.
Yeah.
Sort of, yeah. Okay. We went completely off there. So basically, how does this control system end? When does it end? Well, the Zetas have stated that once humanity reaches a sufficient level of understanding and seek participation in higher consciousness, that plausible deniability will no longer be needed. This control system will just dissolve naturally, and a new, more open structure of interaction will replace it. Disclosure will then occur fully on their terms, the race's terms. Simple, lovely, and timed correctly. So we've got a couple of scenarios. They're only small, and this is where we've thought about what would actually need to take place for people to in some way move towards not thinking that control system was in place. In one scenario, there is a coordinated event. Thousands of craft come to Earth, and they just sit there. They don't do anything, and then after several hours, they leave. So that means everybody on the planet has seen all these craft, and everyone goes, "Okay, so we weren't harmed. Nothing happened to us, but we all saw craft."
A bit like Arrival.
Yeah, like the movie Arrival, which is really interesting.
But I actually asked the Zetas that question, that hypothetical.
Right.
I said to them, can you not just bring hundreds of craft, put them all the way around the world, everyone can see them all at the same time. Nobody has access to privileged information. It's there for everybody. And they said no. And they gave a very good reason why.
And they said because to bring that many craft into the field, the Earth's field, would cause a major distortion.
Yeah.
It would be like a massive EMF pulse towards the planet. And of course that human technology would crash.
Yeah.
And so they won't do that.
When we think about the level of damage that can happen to a person's cellular structure when they go near a craft, like the radiation burns and all of those sorts of things. I think we heard about that with what's his name? There was Rendlesham. I think they suffered consequences. Was it Travis Walton? I think he was he the one that ended up in hospital with burns, and then Gary Nolan's reported all the brain injuries from the pilots who have flown too close.
Yeah. There's a special name for that. Yeah. That physical thing that takes place.
Anyway.
Definitely, when you go near a craft, you're going to have some level of ramification. You're going to get burnt.
When the craft came down at Wallachia, how far away from it was you?
I don't know, 30 meters. Yeah. We had to be. Yeah. We just had to be. The second scenario, and I'm not sure, like about these ones, but basically hundreds of craft land simultaneously in carefully chosen open public locations, and the beings come out. And at that point, there's, of course, a million things that can go wrong, of course, but it depends on, I guess, on what your biases are as to what would be your reaction to the beings. If it was the Palladians or the Nordics, there might be a great reaction to them coming out of their craft. Yeah. If it was the Anunnaki and they were like 10, 15 feet tall, there could be a different type of reaction as well. But basically, at that point, the control system would collapse because disclosure would have taken place. And that's really all that it comes down to. So, I guess from my perspective, this whole plausible deniability, although it's probably not the most interesting subject in the world, it does explain a lot as to why we experience the things that we do. And I think in some level it keeps us grounded because we can say, yeah, look, I'm not really sure about that. And that's because we've got free will. All right. The other thing is with the plausible deniability gone, basically official organizations will become actually largely irrelevant as direct contacts takes place between beings and humans. So there's no more requirement for there to be third-party organizations.
Yeah.
All right.
And that's one thing the Zetas have said multiple times to us, that they do not want to give that level of what's the word, power maybe, to one single organization.
Yeah, there are no ambassadors on this planet.
A
lot of, I mean, it's just a term that some people use. They're an ambassador for a race, but a race putting all of their information into the hands of one person does not work and will never work as well. Now, in regards to that control system, I'm finished. All right, but I do want to bring up another point about some things that I've heard. I think it was yesterday and today. People are saying that they're talking about that the psionics are being used to bring down craft. All right.
Yeah, you go for it.
Yeah, you've heard this, right? So hopefully the people who watching this video have seen other people saying this as well, that they have groups of people and they use psionics and they contact the beings in the craft, and then suddenly the beings who somehow are extremely intelligent get conned into coming here, and then they get whacked with something. Their craft gets whacked with something and then it crashes. Okay.
Doesn't really make any sense, does it?
You see, if you start to think about this, why would beings who are so intelligent allow themselves to be brought into a situation where they knew they were going to be taken out? It just, something doesn't make sense. What about you? What do you think? Do you think it's possible, that if every time you went somewhere and someone went bop on the head, in the end you may not go there anymore because you didn't want that to take place? Well, there's actually another good reason why this could take place, and it's it's about gathering information. So basically, what happens is a race may create what's called a penetration testing mechanism. So they put a couple of containers, or hybrid containers, into a craft. The beings themselves are probably not sentient in any way. They may actually be artificial in intelligence. Somebody does a psionic contact. They allow the craft to go into the contact area. The craft's brought down, but while the craft's being brought down, it's documenting all of the technology that humans have in regards to contact.
Yeah.
And now this information's been sent back to the race.
This is not gifting, as some
Yeah.
people proposed that the craft back in the 40s and 50s, like Roswell, were being gifted to humanity.
Yeah.
We're not talking about that.
Yeah. So basically, some people have said, "Oh, well, we've been gifted technology." Well, maybe we have, but maybe we probably haven't.
No.
And if we were gifted anything, it was probably an old Volkswagen. To be honest, no race is going to be giving humans advanced technology where they can back engineer it and then create all their own stuff for themselves, right?
Not a decent
Well, the problem is every time there's breakthroughs, people sort of work out how to misuse it. That's really what the problem is. All right. So the other thing is that I wanted to mention before we go, unless there's any questions, is the fact that there's a crop circle. I'm not sure what it's called.
Chilbolton.
Is it called Chilbolton?
Hampshire, England.
Hampshire, England. Is that the one?
Is that the one? I know which one you're talking about. I'm assuming I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, it says beware the deceivers. Yep.
Yeah.
And
you might remember it. It's the one with the extraterrestrial face and the circle full of glyphs.
Yeah, and it's got 3 dots, and the 3 dots represent the Orion system. And the Zetas had said many years ago to be wary of them. Also, in the Ra material, or the Law of One, if you look online, they also talk about the Orions, and we're going to be talking about them next week.
Yeah, we've mentioned them.
We'll see what happens.
We've talked about the Orions a little bit.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about them a lot soon.
Well, we'll see what happens. We need to sit down and really think about what needs to be said. All right. Okay. Is there anything you wanted to say?
No.
Nothing.
No, I don't think so.
I don't even know where the mouse is.
It's over here.
Okay.
Lots of
baddies supposedly come from Orion. Well, that's a really interesting thing to say. Yeah. The more you learn about the race, the more you realise they're not who you think they are. That's the other thing. And specifically, when you look at the crop circle, that is an exact image of them, and they're not the Greys or the Zetas or anything like that. What they actually are is a created container, right?
Yes.
And because of that, there's so much more to be talking about.
I think the key is in the pupil.
The key is in the pupil.
If you look at that crop formation from Chilbolton in Hampshire many years ago now, you'll see that the eye is not solid like Zetas have solid black eyes. The Orions have a pupil, very much like our eye.
Anala says, are any extraterrestrials ever involved in exorcisms?
It depends how broadly you want to define the word exorcism, and if you only want to use or limit the word exorcism to a Catholic priest. If you were to rephrase the question, are the extraterrestrials ever involved in the clearance of beings who are unwanted?
Then yes.
Then yes, they are.
Absolutely. You notice the very careful usage of words in those sentences. Example would be the time that a person had used a substance and went on a journey, and when they came back, they had an interdimensional being with them, and the being became trapped with the person for 10 years.
Through no fault.
Through no fault of their own. There was no malevolence. It was all quite neutral. And people go, how's that even possible? Well,
it's really possible.
There's a lot of things that you're going to find out are possible, right? And so anyway, the person turned up here, and through a series of events, the Zetas came forward and cleared the person. We won't talk about what took place because it was far too dramatic, and it would look like that it was some
Demonic
sort of
possession.
possession, but it actually wasn't, and it was completely. If to somebody on the outside, it would look that way, but the Zeta said it wasn't, and we could tell that it wasn't. And the poor entity had been stuck with this human
For decades.
for a decade, and it was just terrible, So that's, I suppose, one situation. But we've done, lots of things with the Zetas where you just wouldn't understand. People just wouldn't understand what was going on. The Zetas provide humans with a lot of protection from a lot of different stuff, and people inherently seem to get themselves into trouble a lot. People like to, what do they do? People like to experiment, and people
experiment.
like to do different practices, and people, humans generally are very inquisitive beings, aren't they?
Yeah.
And in doing so, you can get yourself into a little bit of trouble sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then, of course, you go looking for somebody to give you a hand to get out of that problematic situation that you've got yourself into. And as John says there, sometimes people are reckless, and that is true. It's very, very true. So we sort of we don't normally talk about all the stuff that we deal with because we do work with a lot of different people. People come to us for support and information. We work with various groups, and we spend a lot of time helping and educating people as well, because we want people to have the best possible experience if they do get in contact with beings. I think that's really important. All right.
So do we want to just quickly summarise the extraterrestrial perspective of disclosure, which is very much on their own terms, as and when plausible deniability has run its course and humanity is a little bit further ahead in their thinking and being, I think, in the way that they are with each other. Then they'll disclose when they're ready.
Disclosure, I read a lot, and I see people making statements about when beings will disclose. You've got to understand, we've been saying this for a long time, that the level of disclosure that takes place will be fully dependent on an individual's ability to not externalize themselves to the being. Because, like anything, when you observe something, your observation changes it. Your observation amplifies it. And so the beings themselves, all races, doesn't matter what race it is, all races, when observed, have to in some way interact with the person who's observing them. Now, in doing so, that causes the beings a level of discomfort. So the lower the frequency, the lower the energy that is observing the higher energy, the more they have to come down. And spirit people say this quite clearly. They go, when they come out of spirit realm and are moving down towards this three-dimensional plane, it's like mud. Now, from their perspective, because they were actually here once, they were living beings, they're used to, in some level, that level of frequency, that mud. Whereas other beings who've never experienced that three-dimensional space, say an interdimensional, will be very, very careful about how they interact with somebody. And this comes down to something else that someone was saying, that interdimensional beings, I'm sorry I'm laughing when I say this, interdimensional beings are flying around in craft. Well, interdimensional beings, even if they move into a three-dimensional space, don't need a craft to move around.
The whole.
They can move around via all of the energetic threads and fabric and consciousness. So why interdimensionals would need to be flying around in craft, and I wouldn't know where they got the craft from anyway. And I think this whole level of confusion comes from the fact that people see craft come into the physical reality and leave the physical reality.
And they just can't work out
Right.
this.
But I think we've done a video on this as to how it works and why it works, and it's called space-time compression.
Yeah.
And if something's at a 10x frequency and it moves and then stops, and you see it zip off in a different direction at 10,000 kilometers an hour, that's because of the way that you're viewing the event, right? It is happening, but the way that you're seeing it is completely distorted. It's like the aerial school phenomenon. Yeah. The craft landed, the beings were walking around, but they were phasing in and out as they walked around the craft.
Yeah. They were within the craft's field.
They were inside the field.
The field has a different compression rate, doesn't it? It has a different frequency.
Mm-hmm. So there's a couple of questions here. One is, have you heard of P45, P52s, and also known as J-Rod from the Dan Burrish account, and most recently from Amy Eskridge.
Yeah.
Some of the, I think, was that the one where the being was speaking?
God, I remember reading about this years ago. Isn't that the one where the being makes the connection with the nurse and won't talk to anybody else, but will talk with the nurse? I think
it could be.
Yeah.
There's definitely you've got people who are high up officials saying that, you know, there's bodies and there's craft and there's this and there's that. And of course there is. There's always been that way. The biggest mistake that was ever made was to tell people that they were weather balloons. You know, because if you hadn't have done that, we wouldn't be anywhere where we are now in this situation.
Yeah.
Another question is our planet and our population going through a profound energetic change, as many channelers are saying, and how so?
You know.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
Turn the news on.
Let me ask you a question. Are you going through a profound change?
I think there are individuals that may be going through profound changes.
A very small percentage of them.
Right. Whether those profound changes are for the better or for the worse.
Yeah.
Debatable.
I would answer it this way. I did a discussion with Rodrigo at Zeta yesterday on his channel, and we were talking about how many people, in a percentage-wise, would actually be affected by a disclosure. And like 90-something% of people probably would care less, would not even bother to.
As we said a couple of weeks ago.
You know, not even bother to be interested in this. For them, they're just living their life, okay? And they're just not worried about extraterrestrials. It would be profound if the actual craft came and the beings came out. Then I think you'd have people's attention. But while everybody's just looking at images of the blurry dots, sort of low-res orbs, those sorts of things, people are really going to go, well, yeah, it's not doing that. Now, you know, beware of the information where the channelers always are saying we're ascending into the fifth dimension.
Yeah.
We're just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. The other thing is that they'll always be trying to create another level of excitement. Oh, this is going to happen. You know, we've been told that there's going to be this, and we're all going to ascend and all this stuff. And then years later, nothing happens, and then everyone goes, well, you know, why do I ever listen to that information anyway?
Yeah.
And so from our perspective, we're not. I don't think there's any real profound
I think we might be crashing into the second dimension at this rate if these wars keep going on. So I think
that's so funny.
Laugh. Yeah. Or maybe the blurring of the fourth dimension. Maybe you could argue for that. the amplification of the astral dimension into third dimension space, maybe.
The Zetas told me about 6 weeks ago, they said, when this happens, in the intimate disclosure, even before that, step back. And I would say if a person is feeling a profound energetic change in their life, you need to ground. You must ground. And I'll give you one reason why that's important. Because your mind sits inside a construct, and the more information that comes out, if you aren't grounded, the higher you go. The problem is that the higher you go, the more ungrounded you become.
Yeah.
All right? So it's easier to look at information that's coming out if you look at it from a clinical perspective, if you look at it from just a grounded space, and then go, well, look, that's really interesting. But what does it do for the planet? What does it do for humans? How does it actually change anybody's life? Does this reduce the amount of wars that take place on this planet? Well, no, it's just not at this point. And so from my perspective, there's a lot of narratives going on, there's lots of different theories going on, and some people are putting everything into one worldview. And I said this in a video yesterday, if all you have is a hammer, then everything that you see is a nail, right? And that just means that if your worldview is that everything's this, then of course the problem with that is that's all you'll ever see, because you've got too many biases, right? Yeah, but it's good to have a very clear clinical sort of mindset. And Tricia says that she doesn't believe in recent disclosure. Well, it's really pretty. It's minimal at best, but they have promised that every couple of weeks they'll bring it out. Now, think about if you were in charge of disclosure, would you just dump everything out there for the public, and then probably they would all freak out if they knew what was going on, or do you just drip feed them? And as they're digesting the information, they're grounded. There don't seem to be any real reactions. There's no, people going crazy, and in the streets and all sorts of things. And then people are like, okay, yeah, this is okay. I can handle this. And I think that's where they're coming from, because prior to disclosure, was it yesterday or the day before?
Overnight.
It was up the other night. Well, the other night, yeah. People were coming up with all these different scenarios about what was going to take place, what was going to be said. And a lot of it was really extremely fear-based stuff. So we need to make sure that we all just keep away from that.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah, good.
All right. Well, I think that we have done our time.
I think so.
All right. And we'll see everybody again next week.
Yeah.
Okay. And I need to end this stream after saying goodbye.
Thanks for being here again.
And also, just before we do, make sure there's a little bell next to subscribe. If you click on the little bell, you can go to all, and it means any videos that we have come up on your notification on your feed.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know it either until somebody told me, and then I did it and it works. So there you go.
Learn something new every day.
See you later, guys. Bye-bye.